And I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
Great. Dr. Goodwin? Mr. Mulligan?
Here.
Mr. Soldani? Mr. Robertson?
Here.
Mr. Hartwig?
Here.
Through the chair, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. All right. That takes us into the next piece, which is the consent calendar here. Are there any additions, corrections, anything like that for the minutes of last month's meeting at all? And if none, I'll accept the motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? All right. You can announce that if you want, I guess. It's Mr. Soldani and Mr. Hartwig, Mr. Robertson. And...
Okay. Dr. Goodwin? Don't we have to say it? Oh, Mr. Mulligan?
Here. Or yes.
Mr. Soldani?
Aye.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Hartwig?
Here, or yes, also here. Here and yes. Well, now I'm off. I thought on that one I thought we could just do it by unanimous consent on that one, but
need a roll call vote for all these.
You can. She's
learning. Okay, fair enough. No.
Sorry.
No problem. I was like thinking, I'm like, man, maybe I'm wrong on that.
You can. We're
okay.
Just training, so
perfect.
Get in the habit first.
Getting reps, so I like it. So all right, then that takes us to item number 4, which is a public hearing, and so I'll open that portion of the meeting, and I'll ask all witnesses who intend to testify today to please stand, raise your right hand, so that you may be sworn in. So, perfect. All right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matters pending before the hearing board today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. All right. Then that means we'll call docket number C-23-21R, a regular variance for chemical waste management. So if you folks will come forward, perfect. And then I know it seems a little different. Are we running the same procedure we did last time, or are you making a presentation, Clay or Stella?
A little more condensed and concise, but yeah, we will do a quick presentation,
okay.
And then if
the
you
response.
want to add anything, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. And Dr. Goodwin has arrived as well, so just so if you want to note that. Staff, if you guys go ahead then, please.
Good morning. My name is Estela Soto, and I'm a senior air quality specialist here with the district. And before you is CWMI. And just to give you a brief history, as you recalled last month, CWMI was granted an interim variant C-23-21I, which was on January 17th, 2024, to provide variance protection from January 1st through February 21st, or until the petition for the regular variance was heard. Since the hearing on the interim variance, CWMI commenced construction on the new flare on February 12, 2024. The anticipated completion of construction is set for June 26, 2024, with an anticipated startup of the flare system, which is scheduled for June 27th of 2024. The anticipated date of the performance test will be July 25th, and the date for the submittal of the performance test results will be September 25th of 2024, which is 60 days from the date of the source test. CWMI is currently out of compliance. Therefore, CWMI has requested a regular variance to provide relief from the requirements of District Rule 4311. The requested regular variance period would be effective from January 21st through September 25th, 2024, inclusive, or until the new flare is installed. If granted, the variance will allow CWMI to continue to operate the existing flare after the December 21st, 2023 deadline, and until the installation of the new flare can be completed to demonstrate compliance with Rule 4311. While the district usually takes a position supporting or opposing the granting of a variance, in this case, the district has taken a neutral position. Per California Health and Safety Code, Section 42352, no variance shall be granted unless the hearing board makes all of the required 6 findings. The district believes that the petitioner has to meet the findings 1, 2, and 6 listed on the staff report, and that concludes the district's presentation.
Thank you. And I forgot to have you guys introduce yourselves, so if you guys please
Good morning, Tim Miller, Senior Counsel for Environmental Health and Safety for Chemical Waste Management.
Morning, Raina Verdeen. I'm the Environmental Protection Manager for Chemical Waste Management.
Okay. So would you guys like to make a presentation or?
Well, I guess I'll ask. I believe Member Soldani was not present last month,
Correct.
but my first question was going to be, or ask was going to be, to admit the record from last month's interim variance hearing as the evidence in this case. So I guess I'll start with that request of the chair, and then based on that evidence or whatever else we need to do, then happy to proceed from there in the discretion of the board.
Which, for the record, I have reviewed.
Oh, great.
Also, I have questions of staff. Do we want to do staff questions
Yeah, we
first
can do.
before-
Yeah, we can go that way. I was just kind of have, usually we kind of go back and forth. It's a little bit different here, just given the position, but go ahead if you do have questions.
So I just have one question, and that is why the neutral position? Usually it's for or against, and I'm just
We've done
curious.
neutrals before, not on central recently. It was the district's decision to let Chem Waste present their, the information to make the findings of the district taking a position on it.
No, I understand that, but what was the reason for that? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The district felt that there wasn't strong evidence for us to either be for it or against it at this point.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions of staff before we move forward? Is there any objections to admitting, I guess, last month's testimony, I guess, before as part of the record?
No objection.
Nope.
All right, then I would grant that that be admitted.
Thank you very much. So I guess I will pause there and ask if the hearing board members have any additional questions about the due diligence standard, which we went into significantly, I believe, last month, about what is required under this particular type of variance. To perhaps remind the board, Health and Safety Code Section 42301.3G modifies the standard 6 findings that the board needs to make under 42352. And finding 2 is made by finding that the petitioner exhibited due diligence as that is defined in that particular section of the Health and Safety Code. And so we provided you with a timeline from last month showing the efforts that we had made and provided the correspondence with staff. We contend that the record from last month is adequate for this board to find that the petitioners have exercised due diligence, but happy to review that if the board needs that reviewed or has any questions.
Is there anybody on the board that needs to go over that at all again? And Mr. Dunning, you weren't here. Do you have any questions about that?
No, it's in here.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, and did you answer to number 6 as well?
I was going to cover that next. So, so if everyone's okay on the due diligence standard, staff correctly reported what our current construction schedule is. As noted, we have started. The next major milestone is doing all of the work to get to the concrete and pour the concrete, which, as you might imagine, the weather does play a part in that. But plain and simple, we have a core 4-month construction schedule that has started that would have us complete construction of the flare, the utilities, the pad. All of that is currently anticipated to be complete about June 24th, at which point in time the next day we would start the new flare. And then that would go through its initial startup testing, tuning, and all of that. But we would be operating the new flare sometime around June. And then from there, it's the time to get the source test scheduled, conducted, and do all of the other reporting is what really pushes us out to that September date. So we can provide more testimony or answer any questions about our construction schedule if the board has any questions about that.
Does the district have plans to, request, I mean, so the language in here is the applicant will monitor, otherwise quantify emissions if requested by the district. And what does that mean to you? I mean, are we in agreement on kind of what that means between folks, or is there a requirement, or is there going to be a requirement to do that?
To monitor the emissions on the flare.
Correct.
We'll just be tracking fuel usage, to be honest with you, and then they're gonna do a source test, unless an assumption is they'll pass.
Create a calculation base, okay.
Do you have a continuous emissions monitoring system on the flare, or is it just based upon fuel use?
So, it's based upon fuel use, but we do have continuous
Design.
monitoring on the flare where we could calculate that at any time.
What are you monitoring on the flare?
We're monitoring, the rate, the, heat rate, volume, and then the fuel, the word I'm looking for, the flow going through.
Fuel flow.
The gas flow.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, there's not a SIMS on the flare.
Okay,
There's not a
okay.
sense, no.
All right, so you're basing your NOx mass emissions on fuel rate, and then the result from that prior source test, which
From our-
was, I
yes.
think,
The currently
point-
approved source test. on the
point
flare.
0.033 pounds per MMBTU, something of that nature.
Okay.
I don't know what off the top of my head. It's on our source test.
Yeah, because the flares don't do monthly monitoring.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, is the flare burning 24/7 or is,
Currently, yes, our flare it operates 24/7.
thank you.
Efficiency of this new flare versus the old flare, they're gonna be about the same?
I'd probably ask Christian to comment on that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, you were sworn in, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Morning, everyone. My name's Christian Colleen. I'm Director of Air Programs for the West Waste Management. So the new flare that we're installing is called an ultra low NOx flare, and has much more efficient combustion, much lower NOx emissions, CO emissions, et cetera. And that's the whole point of it, to comply with your new rule 4311. Hope that helps.
Does it use staged combustion?
So the existing flare is a regular low NOx flare, and it just has louvers, and the combustion air is fed through natural draft. The new ultra low NOx flare has a combustion air blower and a mixing chamber where the fuel is pre-mixed with combustion air, as well as additional quench air is brought in through louvers. So it's a different system. That's how they're able to have diluents and keep the NOx production down during combustion.
Is there a tuning process associated with it?
There's definitely some tuning to get that right in the algorithm and everything else, initially when they get it started up. And then it has mass flow meters in all of it to make sure that the proportions are kept right and it's combusting properly.
So what's your feedback? You're gonna have a source tester there testing the emissions while you're tuning it? How do you know you're doing it right?
Part of it is initial, just making sure that the flames are running right and burning all that. And then they do sometimes bring a testo system down to get some initial readings. And then we potentially bring in a source tester to try to figure out if there's any issues there.
Do you have those source testers scheduled? I see that you're anticipating a source test on the 25th. Is that already on their calendar and booked?
I believe we've made some initial talks with them. I'm not sure if we've actually have a firm date with them, because some of this is based on when we can actually get it constructed. We have a aggressive schedule in front of you, and weather is going to play a big part. Hopefully we have dry. I mean, we've had significant rains already. So it is definitely something that as we get closer, we're definitely that is a rate limiting step, and we want to make sure we're on that calendar. So.
Dangerous saying you want it to be dry in front of a few farmers, Any other questions for either for staff or for the petitioner? Good, Jerry.
I have a question for staff. The answers to the three required findings, 1, 2, and 6, does that satisfy your, it does? Yeah. Thank you.
Any further discussion, questions, concerns? If not all, ask for a motion. Or go ahead, Dan.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I did want to address a couple of things, having learned how the board perhaps operates, to get a little insight last month, I did want to address some of the staff recommendations in the staff report.
Okay, yeah. I
If
should have
we
asked
could.
that question.
Hang on a second here. I have the original, not the revised, in front of me. Let me grab that really quick here.
And it's pages 3 and 4 when you get there.
So on recommendation number 4 on a limit on excess emissions, we understand that that's a requirement under 42352, specifically finding number 5. Health and Safety Code section 42301.3G removes that as a required finding. So we'd request that condition 4 be stricken because it's not a requirement under this particular standard that we maintain excess emissions, we reduce them to the maximum extent feasible.
Is there any feedback from staff on?
I don't think the district want to agree with that, but I understand the logic behind it, but we still want excess emission fees paid on those.
We have no issue paying excess emissions fees based on the reports that we submit. It's just a question of whether or not there's an actual limit on what's going on, particularly when you consider the nature of a landfill flare, which is if the gas comes out of the collection and control system, it needs to be burned. What we wouldn't want to do is find ourselves based on changes in gas production rates due to, say, rainfall, that we're coming before the board and having to modify that limit based on something that varies based on natural processes, et cetera, considering we're not legally required to do that under this particular variance. But we understand staff's concerns on the excess emission fees, and we have no concern with that.
And those excess emissions were based on what was provided to the district based on usage. So
Right.
I assume you guys use the worst case scenario.
Christian, do you want to speak to what, I mean, we're assuming that we're going to be issuing regular reports of what our fuel usage, et cetera, is during the period of the variance, and that our excess emission fees would be calculated based on what we include in those reports.
The fees themselves, but you're saying that this shall not, this is the estimated is on page 3.
That was our initial estimate when we filed our petition. We have some revised estimates that are a higher number than that. But again, from our perspective, the question becomes, in terms of just having that condition and a limit, if it's not required by the Health and Safety Code, our contention is it doesn't need to be a condition of the variance. But again, we're going to monitor, we're going to report, and we're going to pay the fees based on the actuals of our calculations.
This has always been a standard.
It's been standard. That's why I was kind of confused. But David, go ahead. You, as an attorney, maybe you have perspective.
So you mentioned that you have a revised calculation. Can you share with us what that, according to your revised calculation, what that number should more realistically be?
The revised calculation is, where did I put that? 924.36 pounds.
Was it for a higher BTU rating on the gas going to it, or just more gas?
It's time,
Time.
based off time. Yeah, when we got the schedule a little bit better thought out and looked at what our actual dates were going to be.
Okay, good.
We went back and revised it. The calculation is the same. It's basically just time. Yeah.
So staff, would there be any objection to modifying that condition to reflect the revised amount?
We want to have objection, but it sounds like Mr. Miller, what you're based on the conditions that are driving the condition, the 6 findings that are driving the conditions in here, you feel like that limit is not appropriate because that finding that's driving that limit's been vacated.
That is our initial contention. If the board in its discretion feels it's important that we have that condition and have that limit, we would be willing to accept a revision to condition 4 as it is to reflect the revised mass.
And the district appreciates you making that offer, and we would prefer that it stay in there.
You would
Stay the
prefer
way
that
it
it
is.
stay the way it is?
Not the
or-
number, but that the condition
The
with
condition
the
itself.
limit stay in there with the revised.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
So if staff doesn't have an objection to that, then as a part of the motion, I mean, I would suggest that we modify that with whatever that amount was.
What
I
was it,
didn't remember all that.
924?
924.36.
Yeah,
That'll be a higher fee.
I concur.
Well, I mean, whatever the emissions are is what they're, is what, yeah.
The point I was making clear here to the public is not about gathering the fees, we're trying to limit
Right.
the amount of emissions.
Correct,
And these emissions are based on how much fuel is going through, so us putting the limit on that doesn't really change it, but it's nice to have that ceiling there that it makes, you know.
Well, I think as we're making our decisions, it's important as we're, you know, protecting the air, you know, as
No,
this
but
board
what
and
I'm
everything.
asking is, his fee, is
Yes,
that
it would go up.
calculated on the higher number?
Correct,
So he's gonna have a higher fee.
correct.
That is correct.
What's the penalty for going over?
There's an excess emissions fee that is charged at, I'm gonna use my memory here, it's $275.
Sounds
And
right.
there's another fee if you go over a ton of
Right.
any of the
Right.
pollutants, then it kicks in at $375. They won't be going over a ton. So it'll just be that excess emissions fee at $275.
Oh.
I like having,
Is that revised number based upon a compliance date of September 25th submittal of the source test results?
You know,
I believe it's based off of the time that the new flare turns on. I'd have to get with our consultant to confirm.
see, I think,
included in their
is
email.
Haley, do you think Haley's on? We can,
She'd be the person I'd ask that question of, if we're allowed to accept her.
Make sure that she's sworn in, yeah. No, okay, and Haley, I believe it is, if you're online, if you're gonna speak, can we, make sure you're sworn in here as well? Perhaps, is that a yes?
Sounds promising.
She responds by bell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Yes, I'm Haley Roberts.
Okay, let me make sure you're sworn in here. Unless you guys stood up and were sworn in earlier, which I'll accept as well.
I'll stand up now and swear in.
I'm sorry, were you sworn in earlier, or would you like me to go
I
through
was
the
not.
thing again? Okay. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matters pending before the hearing board today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. So go ahead, and then please, if you have a response back to the question.
Yes, it is.
so Haley, I think that,
oh,
oh, go ahead.
Haley, did you hear the question earlier? Do you, what the calculation based on the
But
dates?
it's- Yes, so what we have done in the calculations is it assumes the number of days starting from January 1st through the expected flare startup, which is, we're using the June 26th date. So 177 days. And we are using the current flare source test emission factor for the NOx. So it's basically those numbers times the hours through the startup of the new flare.
Okay, and the old number was based upon what dates?
That was the 0.033 pounds per million BTU from the May 31st source test. So that's the most recent approved source test on the existing
No,
flare.
I understand the emissions factor, but we had a value of 741.58 pounds of expected excess emissions. What dates was that calculated upon?
That was based on 142 days,
Okay.
which was our initial estimate from when we received the flare ATC. Or
Got
the ATC for the flares, yep.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Mhm.
So everybody's good with the revised number then? The 924.36, I think, 924.36. Okay.
Any issues with the other
I would
requirements?
like to comment though, if the startup date of the new flare does change, then obviously this number could change.
That was part of the reason we were concerned about having this as a as an express permit condition because we have an aggressive schedule. And so just for that limit alone, and particularly the other question I had were related to the operation of condition 10 in the variance. These are the, and the potential for the variance to be null and void. If there's a violation of any condition, this was where, there's a lot at this point, and then there's the potential to then have to come back to the hearing board for a modification and additional process and procedure. And again, that relates back to the fact that under this particular type of variance, limiting excess emissions is not required by the health and safety code for this type of a project. So we're setting ourselves up for additional work and additional process for something that, again, if this was a standard variance and you had to make that finding, then we totally agree that finding would be appropriate. In this case, the legislature has determined that you don't need to make that finding. And so that's where we're saying, if you don't need to make the finding, let's not have that condition and then create additional work if there's any kind of a variation in the way things go.
Well, on number 10 is a made statement, not a will.
I understand, and that's where we just would like to understand, because we've never seen that before from other hearing boards, be it South Coast, Bay Area, Sacramento, particularly the concept that the variance becomes null and void, which would suggest that that means it's as if it never existed. That's where we'd like to understand how that process works here at this particular board. How is that decision made in terms of whether there is in fact a violation, whether that warrants penalties, which we acknowledge the health and safety code says if you violate a district order, penalties are involved. But the notion that the variance could be null and void is something very different and something, again, where we're like to understand.
So can I ask staff to, Clay, I don't know, or if you want to speak to that? Or...
We've only had I can only remember one where they violated a condition, and it was a limit, and emissions limit, and there was nothing done other than that they got a ticket, and then they did get assessed at the standard penalty, which is $5 a pound. We didn't duplicate it. We just said, okay, we'll charge you. You got an NOV now. It didn't void the rest of the variance.
I think as long as things are going along according to the plan, there wouldn't be any problem.
But you're saying that there's a pretty aggressive schedule, though, so up to, so the gentleman doesn't want it to rain, to this point. I'm just kidding.
Well, can I ask that, would you be comfortable with going with the limit that goes out to the end of the variance, a calculation using that?
So through September.
Yeah. And that's assuming on the day you submit the report, which is when this is going to, technically end.
Right.
That we would assume that it was out of compliance, which obviously the assumption is it won't be, but using that to give you that much cushion so you're more comfortable. Or are we just extending a way out of this where you feel, Mr. Miller, the other way out is not having the condition in it?
Certainly having more, a higher limit provides us the flexibility if there's, hiccups in the construction schedule. So that's certainly helpful. But again, at this point, we're talking about doing some assumptions and some calculations on the fly. I suppose we could take a brief recess and try to do some calculations about that if that becomes a critical aspect for the board for us to redo that calculation.
Mr. Soldani?
Yeah, I mean, I would advocate to have something in there just so there's some incentive, right? Removing that, so there's no incentive
Correct.
to not exceed those emissions. And, I understand your argument from a legal perspective, and that may be an issue that we need to address in the future if it comes to it. You still reserve your right to make that argument if it comes to a situation where that limit is exceeded and we're faced with having to decide what to do at that point, that you still reserve your right to make that argument. But I would be more comfortable having, and it has been our practice here at the board, to just have something in there. There needs to be some incentive, even if the teeth aren't that sharp, but to have just something in there that's a limit that would incentivize the company to keep it under that amount. That's just my 2 cents.
Are you in the Central Valley?
Right now, I don't currently live in the Central. Sorry. Right now, I don't currently live in the Central Valley, but I have lived in Sacramento for a period of time, so I am familiar. And I actually used to work at the Sacramento AQMD, so I'm very familiar with the air quality challenges in the Central Valley.
Well, I'm thinking about that rain you're expecting.
Oh, well, yeah, I drove through
I
it.
don't think it's gonna be an issue.
It hit us pretty hard yesterday. We got about 1.2 inches in 4 hours yesterday, so
Yeah, but once
that
it
kind of put
stops,
us out a
we
little.
go pretty dry.
And we are very much hoping for that.
Yeah, I
on
don't
our
know.
side right now.
Yeah.
Maybe not for the farmers in the room, but
No, I think, just,
We'll be taking an air trip if we start seeing rain here in the summer.
yeah. I think what I'd like to do is, kind of bring this back home a little bit. Let's maybe take a quick, I don't know how long it'll take to run those calculations. I can't imagine it's that difficult to do, but if we were to take a quick, 5-minute recess, is that sufficient to rerun those numbers? Or?
Actually, I think I've done it here on the fly with the extent to which my client's comfortable with a lawyer playing with Excel.
Can you walk and chew
And
down
so
too?
it looks like if I just added 90 days to the current schedule, that would kick us out to 1,394.38 pounds.
Say that, I'm sorry, say that one more time.
1,394.38 pounds.
We just round up to 1,400 and call it good.
Haley could confirm that if you want to over the phone. She's probably already done the calc.
Haley, are you still there? Do you have an Excel spreadsheet open by chance?
He's our engineer. So.
Yeah.
I do, and that is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd say, can we just make it 1,400 just to make it easy for everybody's sake? And yeah,
that's fine.
And so we'll make an adjustment then to, instead of 741 or 1,300 or 924, we'll just call it 1,400 pounds. And then
just to clarify on condition 10, if I'm understanding things correctly, something of the nature of the variance being declared null and void, if that were, I'm assuming that would be a proceeding before the hearing board, not a determination made by staff?
I'll defer to.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it would normally work. If you're going to nullify something, you'd have an opportunity to be heard. There'd be some due process involved. So you'd probably schedule that for a public hearing.
Gotcha.
Unless council wants to correct me on that.
That's correct.
That's good. Okay. Then with that clarification, we have no other questions or concerns about staff's recommendations that I'm assuming would end up in an order. Okay. Thank you. That concludes our presentation at this point in time. I'm happy to answer any additional questions from board or respond to concerns from staff.
Any other questions by board discussion? Staff, if you guys, do you have any questions, or you guys in?
No,
All right.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So I've seen both interim and regular variance. This is a regular variance?
Yes.
Okay.
we would just request that if any contingencies come up, let us know right away.
We have already experienced those, and so Ms. Verdeen has been submitting the required updates to the schedule under Rule 2070. And that's part of what we're operating under as a Title V source. There's some additional requirements there. So we are monitoring our construction schedule and what's been submitted in that construction schedule very tightly. But certainly if there is more rain than we've received, and it looks like we're going to be missing that June date, or particularly if we are based on how things are going with the source test, very clearly going to miss the September date, we are prepared to come in and seek a modification to those conditions should the weather cooperate for the farmers and not for construction companies.
Or utilities.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, communication is key. I mean, I think we've seen through this process that, like I said, communication when it goes awry can cause some havoc. So with that, I'll ask if there's any member of the public then that wishes to be heard on this matter. I don't see any. Is there anybody online that wishes to be heard on?
No comments online.
Thank you. Then I'll ask if anybody was willing to make a motion here. Go ahead.
I move to approve Chemical Waste Management Incorporated's petition for a regular variance set forth in docket number C-23-21R with the required 6 findings of the Health and Safety Code adopted by reference as set forth in the staff report. Variance shall be effective from January 1, 2024 to September 24, 2024 inclusive, or until the new flare is installed and landfill B-17 and B-19 are returned to compliance, whichever occurs first, and shall be subject to the conditions on pages 3 to 4 of the staff report, with the revision to condition 4, 741.58 pounds shall be revised to 1,400 pounds.
Second.
If I may, Mr. Chair, would just like to make sure that, of course, in the discretion of the board, that the order reflects that this variance is subject to Health and Safety Code Section 42301.3G, because that does modify our burden and our standards. And so we just want to make sure that the order properly reflects that.
So how would that, I don't know if
I
that's,
think it's already in the staff report.
I did not see a reference to 42301.3G in the staff report.
Not in this one, but in the previous one. Seen that somewhere.
42301.3 subdivision G.
Oh, no, I saw that in your letter. That's where I saw it.
so how would we go ahead and tell them?
You can include that. You can make reference in the order when you make your motion.
Okay,
They're moving forward pursuant to that code
okay.
as opposed to the normal.
So would you like to, modify the, your
I'm
motion
not
that way?
quite sure what the statement is.
If I can,
Sure.
my suggestion would be you referenced the 6 findings. Maybe we just do something as simple as saying, as modified by Health and Safety Code Section 42301.3G.
42301.3
subdivision G, or you could do the G in brackets, however it's easiest
I
to
think it's
declare
written out.
that
It
point.
look different, but, so you got that, yeah, do you want to just, do you want to reread your, motion there?
I'll do it again.
Yeah, just
Read the
say,
modification.
just read it with the modification, just say.
All right, so I'll modify the motion. The required 6 findings of the Health and Safety Code as modified by section 42301.3G
Of the Health and Safety
of the
Code.
Health and Safety Code.
There we go, thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. With the clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Dr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Dr. Mulligan, Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Saldani?
Aye.
Mr. Robertson?
Yes.
Mr. Hartwig?
Yes,
Through the chair, motion passes.
thank you very much. All right, thank you, guys, appreciate it. All right, that takes us into item number 5, which is public comments. Is there any member of the public that wishes to make a public comment on a matter that might come before this board? I see none in the room. Is there any online?
No comments online.
Thank you. Any hearing board, number 6, any hearing board comments at all?
Just a question for staff. Does it look like we're going to have some of these hearings next month? Okay.
I mean, any hearings at all, or
Yeah.
hearings of this thing?
Anyway.
No, so far we haven't. had any. Oh, yeah, we got a glass plant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Count on our glass plant.
Yeah.
We don't have any more of these, we went through a bunch of these in the south. So this wave of this combustion will update,
Yeah.
which sparkling variance is over. But, and I will say personally, I'm sorry if I sounded evasive in my answer to you, but that was as good as I could give you.
Sometimes that is the answer. That's fine.
Yeah, you're a lawyer. Yeah.
So I've given a few answers like that myself.
Any other comments?
No, I appreciated the questions and answers today.
Yeah, good job, everybody. I'll pat you guys on the back later. So that takes us into a new business, of which I don't see any. So that takes us to adjournment. Thank you, everybody.
Uh-oh.